so there's something going on because I'm looking at the screen.
All right, so we are talking. We are on with our YouTube audience, and we are charging up as we are getting ready for AbilityMKE Now on River West Radio, riverwestradio.com, live streaming right at riverwestradio.com. So we are tuned in to time.gov to make sure we're all on the same time here. And so we are 20 some seconds away from airtime. So here we go. Back to you, Sue.
All right. So we are live everywhere as far. Oh, we just got to hit record too. Woo. Record to cloud. Hot diggity. So yeah, River West Radio, we'll be live in 10 seconds. So I'm going to be quiet right now. Welcome to AbilityMKE Now on River West Radio. My name is Sue Roskoff, and we're so glad you're here to join us. AbilityMKE Now is a show all about integration, bringing people with disabilities and people that don't have a disability together, enjoying life here in the Milwaukee area. And you may hear we have a visitor in my background here, our lovely Minnie. We'll talk about pets here in a little bit, actually. But back to what our show is all about. We all have different abilities, right? We here at AbilityMKE Now dive into the topic of diverse abilities, showcasing and sharing a variety of aspects of ability-related topics. The concept of a disability hits a wide range of possibilities. We could be talking about a physical or mental disability, the deaf and hard of hearing community, blindness, chronic pain, mental health diagnosis, goal of substance use reduction, and the list goes on. There is so much and so many ways that we could relate to what a disability is or means to each of us. And it means something different to all of us. We all have different experiences with that. So with what we do here at AbilityMKE Now, we showcase and celebrate those different aspects. And here we are going into the holiday season. We are looking at a big Wisconsin blizzard coming in tomorrow. And that's something that we all take seriously in our own ways. And we'll see what it ends up being. I know it's being touted as something bad enough for us to have actually changed our travel plans already. So, and I know schools are getting closed up already. Schools that we're going to be going tomorrow are not, so you have to check what's local for you. But I know our school district where we are already is canceled. So we are looking at some pretty heavy duty winter topics, right? So I know we have friends that are wheelchair users, and with that, I know in the past we've talked to them about what does it mean when there's a lot of snow out there, because you know when we are I walk, right? I use both feet, I walk that way, and I know I have to look out for black ice and for the possibility of what's going on with the snow and all that. When you use a wheelchair, there's other considerations you have to take into account as well. So things like if the sidewalks are not shoveled off, they can't get through. I mean, I probably could get through. I probably won't be real happy walking through snow, you know, that's more than a couple inches that are, you know, to get my shoes all messed up, whatever. But if you're using a wheelchair or even crutches or anything along those lines, you really have to think twice about where you are able to go and how you get around, because if those sidewalks are not shoveled off, they can't get through, or they might get stuck. We've got a friend that uses a power wheelchair, and I know I've seen him get kind of stuck in the snow and his wheels are spinning. And you know how scary that is if you're in a car where you end up with your wheels spinning and you can't move forward, you can't move backward, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I'm stuck. Imagine you're in a wheelchair doing that. Where's your protection? Whereas at least if you're in a car, you're at least in the car, you've got some protection that way. But not if you're sitting in your wheelchair, you're out in the elements then, and you've got to somehow figure out how to call for help, or, you know, there's different considerations, right? So it's just something to think about as this is coming down, and just please take that time to actually clear sidewalks, clear the ways into from one sidewalk to the next, the curb cutouts and all those places that need that. Please remember to do that and keep that in mind. That's just something I like to remind people of the importance of that. It's more than just making it nice. It's actually something where it makes a difference. There's people that aren't able to actually get through. So I also have, obviously, Kurt is here with us as always. So I want to bring him in to say hello to everybody and just share what might be on the top of your mind at this point. Thinking with the snow that's coming and the high winds and the awful bitter cold that is being predicted. Come on in and say hello. And what's top of mind with you right now?
Well, yeah, here in Milwaukee and southeastern Wisconsin, and otherwise Wisconsin entirely. Yeah, we're here in our place where winter rolls in, and we have our weather, and snow comes and cold comes, so it's what we do here. But here with AbilityMKE Now, we have our considerations to look at as Milwaukeeans, being humanitarian and considering how we might be helpful and accommodating folks out there, our Milwaukeeans with disabilities, and kind of help that may be needed to help Milwaukeeans, get out and around and doing what they want to do, to look at, this season with the activities going on and things on the civic calendar and the social and community calendars, the event calendars, and to consider how might our Milwaukeeans with disabilities be challenged to attend these activities and do what they want to do, and how well are they doing at home. What happens when somebody's used to having their heat work, and say there comes to be somebody in southeast Wisconsin that all of a sudden their heat doesn't work. They have that concern. We were talking about in anticipating weather conditions that, if we're in this time where there's severe cold and hazardous type conditions, if it gets, below freezing and, quite a bit below zero wind chill and so forth, and then somebody has car issues and stuff like that. And, so for emergency services, where we might be counting on them and they might not be able to respond the way we think. And, the talks have been, you have to consider what if the weather is so severe and all of a sudden you're out in the elements around Milwaukee and you're at risk of frostbite and stuff like that. And so the vulnerabilities just kind of have extra considerations across some of the disability communities. So it's really a time to really think and, a little bit on the mental health side that, in the week ahead, it may be a great mindset for most Milwaukeeans about how great, it is to be at this point on our calendar. But for some people out there on the mental health side, or we've had Jory Prajinski on here, heading things up here at our AbilityMKE Now show, and with hopeinstilled.org and considerations, helping our community be more of an oasis for those living chronic pain. And we talk about scheduled events. Points have been made here on the show in past years where it's like, some people are like, yeah, great. You can go and go carry out what you planned with pretty good certainty. But when you're living with some of these special health considerations, sometimes you just have to dump plans, and it gets to be awkward because you like to be able to commit with somebody and say you'll be there, but then sometimes it's just better for you to, just stay at home. And sometimes, there's the idea of health-wise, like physical health-wise, it may be good to stay home and I guess might say stay by yourself. But then on the mental health side, that's not that great either because, sometimes we don't feel like visiting with people, but sometimes just out of logistics and, maybe physical considerations we keep to ourselves, but then maybe on the mental health side or the emotional side, maybe we wished we were visiting with somebody. So all sorts of opportunities to stretch our empathetic muscle and to say, you know, hey, there's maybe somebody around Milwaukee that could use our help. And there's groups out there that help facilitate it. So sometimes it's a good time of year to, you know, kind of get around Milwaukee and say, who needs my help, and do it through an organization, so that it's done in good format the way people need it. So with that, Sue, that's what we got here to start Ability MK Now. What do you got next?
Well, and that's where things like the technology things that have improved so much make a big difference. Because I know being here, being able to be on Zoom with people, and even if, say, like tomorrow, if it is that we end up being snowed in, or at any point through our winter time here, if we're stuck at home for whatever reason, at least we do still have the ability to connect with people, whether it's from being on Zoom like this, or phone, or whatever method we can do. I love the online tools where we actually can see face to face, or using even on the phone, like a FaceTime kind of thing. Those are such valuable tools to help, so people are not isolated. Even if you are isolated physically, you don't actually necessarily have to be. There is a way to reach out and be with people, even if it is virtually. So it makes such a difference. Personally, I am thrilled through COVID, when all these tools became more and more common and more used, and people are accustomed to being able to use them. I think that's made a monstrous difference for people to have those methods of being able to reach out and at least virtually be with each other. It's huge. And when you're talking about mental health and whatnot, that it is a great thing to even to be able to check in on your friends, and you can actually see how they're doing, not just hear them on the phone. But the big thing is to be reaching out and touching base with them. That's at noon every day. We do the shakedown. I know we've talked about the 12 o'clock shakedown before, and that's a big thing. We have a group of us that we meet every day, and not everybody is able to make it every day, but we try to. And I'd say we always have at least a small group of us there that are actually connecting every day at noon, doing what we call what was named the 12 o'clock shakedown. So it's something that takes place at 12 o'clock noon Central here. And we get together on Zoom, and we also do this live on Facebook, so that even if you can't be there right at noon, or if you don't want to join us on the Zoom call, that's fine. You're able to do it yourself. But it's called the shakedown because we literally grab something that we can shake, whether it's Kurt has maracas that he uses. I've got a little container with rice in it that I shake. You don't even have to shake anything. You can shake your fists if you want. But we just do simple movements to get people moving, because it's so important to keep movement and motion, even if you're stuck sitting at home, or if you're in a wheelchair. If you have limited mobility, the more you use the mobility you have, the better you're able to maintain it and keep things working as you hope, right? So we do that together. We do a lot to just, again, 15 minutes of music and motion it's amazing. And I know I've had issues over time with migraines, and usually it's something in my neck that ends up causing headaches. And believe it or not, something as simple as that 15 minutes of music and motion has made a difference for me. By the time I'm done, even, if you got a headache, sometimes that's not what you necessarily want to be doing, is try to be social, try to do all this movement. It has helped. It has actually done wonders for me. And you know what? Now in the last, I'm trying to think. Turk was the one that led the group for the first, couple of years of it going. And now he has handed off the baton here, because he just doesn't have that time frame available to be doing it. And I've been, for the most part, have been leading the group with the motions and whatnot for Shakedown since, what would you say, was it August? I believe August, September, somewhere in there. And I haven't really had the headaches that I had been having previously when I wasn't doing shakedown every day. Just that little bit of movement to really keep things loosened up. It's made a difference for me. So it's just something to keep in mind to make sure that you are somehow being active, being some way to keep your body moving. So that's just something that's worked for me, and I've always appreciated it. So the 12 o'clock shakedown is a group that can be found on Facebook, and it is something that we do a Facebook live when we're doing this, and we're also on Zoom. So the link is available, and it's a lot of fun. So that's just something that when we're talking about connecting, I automatically think of that, because that is exactly what we do. We are touching base with each other, we're connecting, and I see them, the group that's on there, nearly every day. So it's a lot of fun. Thinking of the cold coming and the holidays and all that, we all have pets too. We have a friend of the show that has taught us a lot about pets, and it's something that I just think about with all the things that keep changing or that will be changing here in the next few days with what the pets are going to be having to deal with too. They have to adapt to all the people coming and going from the houses and the cold weather, and just we have to be cautious with them as well, right? If it's too cold for us to be out there, it's too cold for them too. So we have to be careful with what we're doing with them. So with AbilityMKE Now, I'm even thinking ability-wise with our pets, what are they able to do, and how can we take care of them? So Kurt, I actually want to toss this back over your direction to ask a couple questions here, because we're coming up on the end of the year, and it's been a heck of a year. There's a lot has happened. We've had a lot of amazing people on the show here. We've done there's been some big events that we've been a part of. I'm wondering, as you think back to this past year, if you have any particular highlights that stand out in your mind, whether it's a particular interview, if it's an event. There's been a lot of things that have been ability related. So I'm just curious if you have any specific ideas of things that stand out to you in this past year.
Well, I guess, not as much, kind of hitting a highlight or anything. I think it's just more the culmination, because, when I set the layout of AbilityMKE Now 6.5 years ago, I thought of, as we talk to our Milwaukeeans, and our Milwaukeeans are listening out there, I kind of want to make this show along a year, in a year's worth of programming, to talk about, like ability ministry, to look at like our faith spaces across Milwaukee, and to say how are, or in what ways aren't, faith spaces considering Milwaukeeans with disabilities to make what is facilitated through a faith community accessible, feasible, attractive, and the way that people with disabilities would like it. Now, when you look at here at AbilityMKE Now, have we talked that much in that direction? Not remembering, a whole lot. So being aware of that as we venture into 2023, that's an opportunity. I know that we've had, my Shirtel relative, Rick Kreiser, on here, and he's done some, readings from sacred scripture, Bible verses and so forth, and, kind of helped us shape a little bit of that, ability side of the, so I guess that's a way I can reflect back and take a look at that, and then we have, in terms of the service opportunities around Milwaukee. You and I are part of Optimist International. We're members locally to the Sussex, Lisbon, Land, and Butler, Optimist Club. We've had that opportunity to refer to the communications contest for the deaf and hard of hearing, a scholarship opportunity for high school students, most likely. On the district level as well with the Swiss district, there's the different zones that kind of have a couple of them through the Milwaukee metro area. And we could talk about any service organization. We've talked, to some extent, in our years, across, 50 weeks, we've talked, to some extent to that. We think of our educational aspect. I'm thinking of some talking in terms of professional, like master classes, and we have our Happy Neighborhood Project group that has had a lot of our happy neighbors, I'll call them, come on here. We've had Denise Vargas, our diva, co-hosting, several weeks with us. That's been great with, she kind of comes from the New York direction of things, so we've had a lot of out of towners, come in here. And I just really believe in that. I think being an ambassador of Milwaukee and see how Milwaukee contrasts and how people around the world are exactly the same as we are here in Milwaukee. I think that's all great stuff. And I think for the future of Milwaukee, I think it's a healthy way to go about it. Because I've been in conversations going back 15 years ago where it's like, hey, in some sense, we're in a little bit of an echo chamber bubble here around Milwaukee. So kind of getting some of these outside parties that we're meeting through worldwide networking has been very powerful. And, people have enjoyed being able to participate in Milwaukee radio like this. And it's interesting to be able to share, like why we're called AbilityMKE Now, and it's basically building off of the experiences of ADA celebrations from Independence First. Independence First branded 8825 MKE because nationally the campaign was 8825 for the national celebrations. And then when Independence First helped celebrate here in Milwaukee, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the brand 8825 MKE. And so it's through doing that and helping 8825 MKE conduct Ability Fest. And now, we brought it to radio. It just came together for me to say, this is then AbilityMKE Now radio show right here on River West Radio. And thanks again, Marty Hagedorn, for 6.5 years ago saying, hey, Kurt, what do you think about disability advocacy radio? And, kind of getting the suggestion off of what he does for our inner city youth here in Milwaukee with Youth Rising Up right here, River West Radio. And, so then I think of the opportunity to talk civically, to talk in agency work, like bringing up about Independence First. And, there's Disability Rights Wisconsin. We have our Disability Resource Center here in Milwaukee. And so a lot of opportunities to talk to this stuff. And I don't know that kind of stuff came out as much as it could. I know we've had our opportunities in adaptive sports and rec, or just talking sports in general, whether it was adaptive or, about people with disabilities playing. Sometimes it might have been about our pro sports. And, for sure, we explore all the fun things, that we do in life, hobbies, sports, pastime, leisure activities, travel. I think we had a little bit of discussion about that in terms of the considerations of travel. You mentioned about pets, that's a whole other area, but, the idea of traveling with your service animal, that kind of stuff. But we've had, Chad Murphy Price on here. We've had Adam Boyson on here that came back on my birthday, November 30th. And, we've had Patty Ernest on here. She's going through quite a story, in being slapped the label in this and so-called a stigma. I don't want to say that just because she's given a severely mentally ill designation that that all of a sudden means that there's stigma, but it's just kind of the way they treat her, that she doesn't identify as being severely mentally ill, and sort of work with her to get that, taken away where she doesn't identify with that. It's just interesting how she gets treated differently because some psychiatrists, threw that label on her of severely mentally ill. And I've been a part of hearings where I just can't believe what's going on bureaucratically. So with that, I mean, it's a roundabout way of saying, I just appreciate what the list of people across the last 50 weeks have done to create a year's worth of programming, because that's the way I pictured it. It takes several shows, and it takes months of shows to really shape the potential of what we got here each night in 29 minutes. So there you go, Sue. I'll let you take that and see what you got for a conclusion here, right at River West Radio with AbilityMKE Now. You and me talking, Roscoff style. What's your side of it, man?
I think it's huge, all the things. When I think back too about this past year, obviously a highlight for me is always our adaptive skiing events. And that's where we have that chance to actually interact with our participants up close and personal. And it is, until you have that chance, it's hard to describe it and make it real. You can look at the pictures, you can see the smiles on their faces. I know with one of the moms, I was in a boat with one of the moms, and her son, who has autism, was in the sit ski, and the mom sharing with me just the expressions that her son was having, and the actually like just literally shouting and screaming and excitement and happiness and all that he was doing, that the mom was in tears with how happy she was to see him being able to be this happy, this expressive, being able to actually experience that. And that's something that the only time she ever sees him really truly being able to experience that kind of joy is when he's behind the boat like that. And he always looks forward to coming, and they come as often as they're able to. And that's just in my mind a big example of why we do what we do and why we want to share what we do, because it is such an impact, and it doesn't make a difference for everybody, right? It's not for everybody, but it made a difference for him, right? I know they always say that old story of the kid that's on the shoreline and sees thousands of starfish that have washed up on shore, and he's throwing them one by one back out in the water, and some guy's asking, it's like, well, why are you bothering? There's so many, you're never gonna be able to take care of all of them, or never gonna be able to save all of them. And the kid says, yeah, but I made a difference for that one that just got thrown back into the water. So along the way, if we can make a difference for people one by one, or if it can be a bunch, I don't know. We'll never know who we've all impacted. We only can hope that we're doing good things. And as the holidays are coming up here, keep in mind patience and kindness, because I know one thing that we don't know what another person has been through. Like our friends, I often think about the friends of ours that are wheelchair users, that I don't know what it's like to be in a wheelchair all the time. I have no idea. Why would I know? I don't have that experience. So that's just one example of that. That's something I can see the difference of how we get from point A to point B, is that I walk and they roll. One's not better or worse. They're just different. When we get together with our family and friends, especially over the holidays, there's always that added level of excitement. There's that added level of stress. There's so many emotions going on. I just personally need to remind myself, and I'm reminding myself out loud so I can remind everybody to just remember to have patience. You don't know necessarily where that relative is that you haven't, mentally speaking, that you haven't seen for months, perhaps. And just remember to be kind and do what you can to be accepting. And that's, again, with what we do at Ability MKE Now, trying to celebrate our differences and our abilities and what everybody brings forward. I hope that we're all able to do that to the best of our abilities over this holiday season. So, Kurt, thank you so much for sharing tonight. My name is Sue Roskoff, and for us here at Ability MKE Now,